Welcome to the highly anticipated third season of the Single Dads Unplugged, where we embark on the profound exploration of the unique challenges and triumphs faced by single fathers. This season, we delve deep into the realm of emotional resilience, unraveling the layers of strength that single dads exhibit as they navigate the complexities of parenthood on their own, from coping with the emotional rollercoaster of solo parenting to finding solace in unexpected places. Our episodes aim to inspire and empower single fathers on their journey. In Season 3, our focus extends beyond the individual, shining a spotlight on the invaluable bonds forged between single dads and their children. We bring you heartfelt stories of connection and growth, showcasing the remarkable ways in which these fathers nurture and strengthen the familial ties that define their lives. Moreover, we address the crucial intersection of financial and emotional well-being, offering practical insights and advice to help single dads not only survive, but thrive in their role as primary caregivers. As we navigate the intricate landscape of co-parenting challenges, our aim is to provide a supportive space for single fathers to share experiences and glean wisdom, fostering a sense of community and resilience in the face of adversity.
Welcome to the Single Dads Unplugged. This is Season 3 and your host is Tanya. We are all about helping fathers build relationships, effective relationships with their kids, also forming bonds, but also breaking stereotypes. With me right now, Tanya van der Walt. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
How are you feeling?
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for making time to share your insights with us. And first off, maybe tell us a little bit about the work that you do that involves kids and parents.
So I'm an educational psychologist in private practice, and I work with children basically from the age about 3 years all the way through, and I work with adults as well. And it is very important to, when you work with children, to work with both parents, whether they are together or not, whether it's a single parent or not, because in today's society with social media and everything else going on, you need all the support systems to work together.
Absolutely. I was talking to you earlier about the kind of challenges that you address when you meet kids and their parents. In this network, we try to empower single dads to be better dads. It just comes down to that, whether it's communication, spending time, giving attention. That's what we're trying to promote. What are the key challenges that you find with your patients or clients when it relates to relationships with their kids?
Time.
Okay.
Time. I think for some parents, COVID was great because they worked from home and they could actually spend more time with their children even though they worked from home. Suddenly from last year, it feels as though we are 10 years in 1 month type of thing, because everyone quickly went back to work and there's no time. And we need time with our children so that we can connect with them. And
so our kids are growing apart from us as parents.
Yes. Yeah? And I think as single dads, it's even more difficult, because if there are two parents in a household, you can sort of, okay, dad's going to work late.
So
if you're on your own, it's tough. But what we need to remember as parents is that you don't need to spend hours with your child. If you can give 5 minutes quality undivided time.
Undivided
time.
It makes a big difference.
That's all your child wants. I have children coming to me saying, my mom or my dad is sitting next to me, but they are on the phone the whole time. That's not quality time.
Yeah. You mentioned that someone was telling me that the dad comes, this is a lady, a single mom. The father comes to fetch my child every Friday. I've always assumed that they're spending time together over the weekend. Meanwhile, he takes her and sends it off to Granny in a township. And Sunday afternoon, I have to go fetch her again to take her back to mom. And I'm thinking, how could you do that? Because the idea is for the two of you to bond. Why do you then ship or send the child to the granny? And I can't understand how that's the case.
You know, I think it's often the case because when we grew up, many of us had absent fathers. And fathers do not always necessarily know how to relate to their children. So it's easier just to give it to a granny or an aunt, because the perception is females know how to parent, and it's not.
No, that's true. I'm going to come to that because it's a big issue. Is it a societal thing, or is it the way we were brought up, especially at our generation?
I think it's a bit of both.
A bit of both?
Yes, I think
how do we reverse, how do we even change the stereotype that only women have got inherent ability to raise and nurture kids? How do you change that stereotype?
Dads need to start standing up and saying, it's my child as well. I have a very, very important role to play in my child's life.
You can raise them as well.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's not that, sorry, I'm going out this weekend with my buddies, we're going clubbing or drinking or whatever it may be. Yeah. I am doing something with my child.
I want to talk to you, Tanya, around nurturing and building strong, effective, lasting relationships with kids. And in your practice, what sort of advice, nuggets, approaches you share with the parents around how to build those relationships slowly but surely without letting go, and making sure that they give that attention and time to the child?
I think one thing that one can start doing, especially when your child is still younger, say up until the age 10, 11, is when you put them to bed, to not just say, okay, it's time for bed, switch off the light and you go out, but to sit with your child or lie with your child and perhaps read a book to the child if they are too young, or to say, you read a page, I read a page, let them read the book, and then just to have that conversation.
It means a lot. And like I said earlier, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, but that's, and learning to put away phones and gadgets while you're with the child. Someone yesterday was saying to me, when your child, as a Sunday dad, is spending a weekend with you, that's his or her time. So it's not just they're fitting into your schedule, you should fit into theirs. So what do we do as parents? We say, well, I've got a game to watch, I've got a bride to go to, then the child must fit with that. Instead, it should be the other way around. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And I think that's why with all the school sports going on, it's an opportunity because, exactly. You can go the Saturday morning to your son's soccer game. And having a dad there to support,
means a lot.
It means a lot.
It means a lot.
From personal experience and people in my life where the men will say, my dad never came to one of my games. My dad never came to anything, not a parent-teacher meeting, nothing. So, and we need to break that cycle.
But what is the impact to the child when that happens? Because in this network, we're trying to destroy deadbeat fathers, just providers, dads being ATMs and dads being just providing financial resources. What is the impact to the child when the dad is absent, not just in the games, but in his or her life? And is there psychological, emotional impact that you want to highlight?
Yes, because that child is going to feel, I can never go to my dad with anything. It can go so far as, can I really trust
Can I
this
trust this
person?
person, yeah.
Will this person back me up when
Yes.
I'm in a huge mess?
Yes.
When my girlfriend gets pregnant or I get pregnant,
Can
will
I go to him?
to him?
For advice even.
And
It breaks the relationship.
Totally.
And I was saying in the previous season, Tanya, that, and I'm glad you've watched some of that content. I was saying that if the child doesn't have the direct route to the dad, they end up exhaling and pouring to other people like boyfriends that are not necessarily father figures, and there's some sensitive issues that they discuss with those people that actually need a father figure. There is another impact there. Would you agree with that?
Yes, because going to peers for advice is the worst thing possible.
Or even to friends
Yes,
with advice when an issue actually requires a dad.
yes, it
And-
does. And if you just think with boys becoming teenagers, dads have a very important role because
Absolutely.
a dad needs to tell their son about erections and what wet dreams and all those things are. There's no
They are
way.
real.
I am so glad my boy's father can have those discussions with him because
But where do they go then if there's no father in their lives?
then
With
they
those issues
go to friends.
to friends.
And
Yeah.
if friends' fathers did not have those discussions with them,
Yeah.
then you get the wrong
Wrong
information.
information and wrong advice.
Totally.
The other thing that I was talking to you about is that in this network we talk a lot with dads themselves. And I was saying to you earlier on as we were talking informally that part of our responsibility in this network as well is to start talking to the boy child who is a future father, who is a future dad, who is a future husband, to teach them about pregnancy, about relationships. What in your profession are you doing to really encourage parents to start early to have those conversations with their kids?
Do you know what? Through working with a child and then the parents, because for me it's very important to have the parents involved in the whole therapeutic process.
Yes.
And I think through doing that, you then have conversations with either mom or dad or both of them saying, do you know what? Perhaps do this. I had a little boy that I saw last week, and his dad took him to the rugby last Saturday. His face lit up.
Wow.
He couldn't stop talking, even though dad left during half time.
But he was there at least
He
half
was
of the time.
there, and that was, I think, his highlight of the year.
Wow.
That
That
they
is a
could do
greatest
that.
impact. Yeah.
And it's something small. And in this instance, it wasn't even that they spoke for
But
40
he was
minutes.
just there.
He
Yeah.
was there,
Yeah.
and dad did something son wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that relates to what you mentioned earlier, where children often have to slot in with
Yeah.
what parents
no,
want
it's
to
their
do.
priority. Is that you should slot in with their plan.
I wouldn't say you should slot in with their plan every single time,
time,
and
yeah.
with everything.
Of course.
Because children need to realize that you are the father
And you are in charge.
and you
also
are in charge.
Yeah.
We
And
might do something my kids want to do this weekend,
Yeah.
but there has to be a balance.
But they should trust that you're going to act in the best interest of the child. Even if you decide, instead of going shopping, we're going to go to the zoo. Instead of going to the zoo, we're going to go to the park. So they should trust that whatever you decide is going to be in their best interest, yes?
Yes, definitely.
I was thinking around facilitating time with the child as you talk to us. Have you engaged in those kinds of conversations where you say, listen, I can help you as a parent to create some kind of parenting plan, especially if the other parent does not live with you? Are you engaged in those conversations with your clients?
you have to have those conversations
Okay.
with the parents, because what I'm often seeing is it's definitely changing, which is fantastic, that it's more half-half
It's
with
more
mom or dad.
Okay. All right.
That's great.
Yeah.
But even there, boundaries and structure and routine,
Yeah.
as far as possible, has to stay the same in both households,
Okay.
because it confuses children,
The child,
especially
yes.
when they are younger. If
Okay.
when I'm at mom's house, I can go to bed at 10, I can have whatever
But
I
when I'm
want
with
for
dad,
dinner. There's routine and
there's
structure,
routine.
which children definitely need.
This brings me to the next question around parenting styles, and Chris and I were discussing this in the previous interview. How do two parents harmonize parenting styles in such a way? They don't have to be the same. By harmonizing, it means to me making sure that they are not so different that it begins to impact the child in a negative way.
Yes. I saw a child where, as the example I spoke about earlier,
Yeah.
at mom's house, child can eat whatever they want, and because it's less vegetables and fruit and healthy food,
Yeah.
when the child gets to the dad for the week, it takes him 2-3 days before this is our routine, and then goes
So they
back.
have to adjust.
And yes.
Is it easy to adjust, though, for them to adjust, especially at the tender age of, say,
No.
3 to 6, 3 to
No.
9? Huh?
No, the
Because
children.
as they switch visitation, they're going to be shocked, when they come to this house. Oh, I'm not allowed to open the fridge on my own. I have to ask. Whereas at my mom's, I can do what I like. I mean, how do you even expect kids to be able to adjust at that level, at that age?
It makes it very difficult for the children, and then the child starts playing the parents off against each other.
Manipulating them.
Oh, totally. And children
Really?
children
Can
are
they do that at
brilliant
that
with
age?
oh, yes.
Manipulation.
Oh, children can start manipulating you from baby, young.
From baby.
Yes. If I cry, mommy or daddy's going to pick me
but
up.
If I want something, I cry, and then they will. Yeah, if I want ice cream. So let me ask you this. So how do you then coach parents to be able to look for those kinds of manipulative behaviors from the young ones? Is there something we should do about it as parents, or should it just endure and live with it until it disappears?
That's where communication between the parents come in.
Okay.
And it's difficult, especially if it's co-parenting and the divorce was extremely acrimonious, because then parents don't really want to talk to each other. But there has to be that communication to say sort of, let's make these are the broad lines.
The guideline, the boundaries.
Yes.
The broad guidelines.
And see where we can work within those.
So that's part of communication. Although you're setting up a parenting plan, that's not in a piece of paper, but those guidelines need to be discussed between two parents, yes?
Definitely, it has to be discussed. That's why I say if it could rather be broader, because if it's like this, and
it's
one
too
parent
Steps
might,
out. Yeah.
yes,
One boy, well, I would say a boy, but I haven't met this young man. He says he's 18 years old. He sent us an email through our platform and said he's 18 years old. He's just made someone pregnant. They've got a little child. He doesn't have a job. He's still looking for money to go to tertiary to further his studies. Because he doesn't have money and he can't provide for his boy, the girlfriend has denied him access to the baby. I think he's 18 months. And then he's saying, how can you, as Sunday Dads Network, help me have access to the child? Are you dealing with similar cases like that? And how would you advise that young man to gain access to the child?
no, I don't deal with those type of cases. No, for that you have to do certain courses and be qualified
Wow.
to work with forensic psychology
Wow,
and those
psychology.
parenting plans and things.
Yeah.
I think for that young man to have a discussion with a mom and say, I may at this stage perhaps not be able to
Yeah.
provide financially, but you
Yeah.
know what? I can be there emotionally
Emotionally.
for our son.
Yeah.
So if you work, you could perhaps leave our child with me so that I can form a bond and spend time with.
Because that bond is irreplaceable, and you can't replace it with any financial support that you can think of. Because the child, especially at 18 months, they do need that emotional involvement.
So the first 3 years of a child's life
Yeah.
is the most important in building that bond.
Yeah.
They have done studies in prisons with the murderers and the psychopaths and the sociopaths and that part of the population.
Yes.
And more than 95% of them did not have any primary bonding figure within the first 3 years of their lives.
So that's critical stage.
It's a critical stage.
I want to read you, Tanya, statistics from this study. It's a case study that was published by the University of Stellenbosch in 2017. Listen to this. 63% of suicides come from fatherless homes. 70% of juveniles in state institutions come from fatherless homes. Listen to this one. 40% of children do not live with their biological fathers in this country. 85% of children with behavioral problems come from fatherless homes. This is a big one, last one. 90% of homeless children come from fatherless homes. Can you see the impact on society and the issues that economically, societally, we are dealing with based on fatherless homes? Do you identify with these stats?
Definitely. And I think that's why your organization is playing such a vital role to try and change
And
that.
break the cycle.
Yes, because it's really scary to be a parent.
And probably this was 2017. Maybe these numbers have changed for the worse. I mean, if 90% of homeless children, I was driving around in my community, and I'm thinking, what could push these kids from their homes to decide to live in the streets, especially if the home has got a mother and a father figure, equally responsible in supporting their child. So the statistics don't lie, because they're saying 9 out of 10 of those kids come from fatherless homes. And again, I ask you this: how do we begin to break the cycle? Maybe these conversations are a good start, but practically through your profession, what is it that you can do to engage single dads and single parents to work with networks like ours to break those cycles?
I think doing podcasts like this, but also doing workshops and talks.
Yeah.
Even if it is at community centers,
yes, townships,
or
communities,
or where you can, if there is a soccer game going on, but some of the bigger ones, one would need to think how to do that. But if Pirates and Chiefs play soccer against each other, to say, okay, let's have conversations about these things.
Yeah.
Because that's for parents currently. But going to the schools and working with teenage boys,
Getting into the, actually I was
to
saying
start working up.
That's a good start, because as Single Dads Network, we are working with Kids Haven. I was telling you this. In fact, the CEO is going to be with us in the next interview tomorrow. That Kids Haven are doing a lot of community outreach programs where they teach both parents and kids to be available and be there for one another. And I'm hoping that working with professionals like yourselves and our community, we can start the conversation and dispel the notion that the father is just the provider. He doesn't have to give attention.
And I think also, now that we have spoken about this, sometimes people have the idea that professionals think that or believe that people must pay you to come and see you and get advice.
Is it?
But because we know this is such a huge societal concern and challenge, I can definitely say that there would be more people willing to give some of their time for these community outreaches just to reach people, because we need to change things.
Yeah. I agree, because our network is an NPO. It doesn't have enough funding to. We would like to go to every school and every community, every township, and in every setting out there to speak to dads and parents and kids. Obviously, that would take time, but we believe that through these kinds of conversations and our podcast and our network, the cycle is going to begin to shift. Before we...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
We need to, I'm just thinking now, we need to speak to the educational psychologists who work for the Department of Education and try and partner with them
as well
to get into schools.
Because I was saying, so you spoke earlier about the ages of 0 to 3. What about teenagers? I was thinking, someone was saying to me, schools are not paying a lot of attention around teenage pregnancy, prevention, use of contraception or birth controls, because they leave that responsibility to the parents. But what if the parents are not doing it? So can you see, is there a tripartite kind of relationship between teacher, child, and parent to talk about those things? And how do we ensure it exists?
So it's often left to the teacher who teaches life skills.
Life skills,
And often the life skills teachers actually the teacher, you don't have enough periods in your timetable, I'm going to give you life skills. And it's such an important, it's such an important subject. When I was a teacher years ago, girls would come to me and tell me if I drink 2 liters of Coke before the sun rises, I won't fall pregnant after I've had sex.
Is that what they thought?
Yes.
Wow.
That was what they were told.
They were told. Is this at school?
Yes. These were grade 10 girls.
Do you advise parents to talk openly about sex education at home, about sexuality, about understanding kids' sexuality at an early age or teenage age? And what do you tell them the benefits of that could be?
Do you know what? That's the problem. Parents don't know how to speak to their children about that. It's for some parents, it's really very difficult to have those conversations.
About boyfriends, girlfriends, pregnancy.
The sexual act,
stuff.
how it works, how the biology of a person works. But it is very important for parents to have those conversations.
Let me tell you this. When I was watching television on the 1st of January this year, and the Minister of Health was walking around in the hospitals congratulating mothers that were giving birth on the 1st of January. Let me tell you this. In Helen Joseph's hospital, I think, out of 100 babies that were born on the 1st of January, 28 of them were by teenagers. So that's 28% of those. Imagine, that's a day. I mean, I'm thinking it's coincidental that the minister was there. Statistics actually came out. Imagine if per day that hospital produces 100 babies and 28% of them are by teenagers. And think about that statistic. I'm assuming that the fathers are also teenagers or slightly above teenage age. I mean, what does that say? And how present can those 28% brothers be to those kids, especially at that age?
At that age,
they're figuring out life themselves.
Yes, It must be
What's probable?
very, very difficult, and it becomes problematic because dad wants to finish school, perhaps mom wants to finish school as well, so baby is given to granny, great granny, aunt to raise.
So they end up outsourcing
Yes.
their responsibility of the child to granny, aunt, relative.
And
It's hard.
yes, and
And then the young lad and the young lady continue looking for other things and moving on with their lives. Then the granny has the responsibility now.
yes.
It's part of the 90% of children that are
With
in
the
the streets
fatherless.
within
Yes.
fatherless homes because he's not there.
And it makes it very difficult. So one has to actually then at the hospital somewhere we need
Somewhere,
to
yeah.
grab them and say, do you know what, you do have a responsibility.
Can you see how important then the child education before they even go to that hospital, before they fall pregnant, to raise awareness through this network and other platforms around teenage pregnancy and prevention thereof. But I'm targeting particularly boys. Understanding, I was saying to you, when you start having a child at an age of 18, you are signing up for a project of 20 to 25 years. But can you endure that period of time at 18 years old as a boy? Or are you going to outsource that fatherhood responsibility to someone else?
But I think it's because it is so very daunting for them and they feel so overwhelmed. And that's what happened to me when I was a baby. My parents didn't raise me. I was also sent to my granny.
To your granny.
So it's that
It's a
cycle
and
that,
that's repeating.
and
Look at it now, it's worse.
and that's why he would think, so what's wrong if my child gets raised by the granny? I'm fine. Not
Wow.
thinking I'm having a
impact.
child at 18.
At 18,
But
yeah.
that's why I think it's very important to speak to boys at a high
At a
school
very
level,
exactly.
because here 14, 15 hormones really start
Yes,
happening.
racing, yeah.
And
Yeah.
to have those conversations, it's fine. We are not telling them you can't have sex.
Of course.
But
Understand. the
use
consequences,
protection,
use
and there
protection.
is consequences.
Yeah.
And that's the thing as single dads as well. We need to teach, you need to teach your children that there are consequences for their actions.
Absolutely.
And whatever the consequence is, that's it. I'll support you, but I'm not going to rescue you and say, don't worry, I'll
Yeah,
sort
and
it out.
I'm not going to raise the child for you. Before you go, one person said to me, is it ethically right for a mother of a 16-year-old daughter to start talking to them about birth control, or should that decision be left to the child? Or do you just raise awareness but not decide for them to take birth control? Or should, at that 16-year-old age, is it fair, therefore, to leave the responsibility or the decision to the child around birth control? Or you think the parent should take it?
Sure, that's a difficult one. I think the parents and the teenager should have that conversation together, because 16 is too late.
Actually, yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, should start early.
you should start earlier, because some kids are already sexually active at the
12.
age of 12. Then I
Yeah.
think, really? But they are. But that's why you need to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And contraception, for me, in our society in South Africa, is not only for having sex. There's a lot of gender-based
There's a lot of
violence going on.
Yes, yes.
Contraception
Exactly. Yeah.
could help.
Yeah, yeah, because
That
it's
doesn't
it's a double-edged
It's
sword.
sword.
Because yeah, if you leave it to the devices of the child, can they actually take a rational decision around birth control? Sometimes you feel guilt as a parent if you make decisions for them, because you're thinking they could have taken a different decision themselves. Tanya, thank you so much for your time. I wish we could go on, because I've got so many things to ask you about this topic, and I hope you're going to join us again at the next season to share more insights. I need to thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All the best. Take care.
Thanks.